12 years after the release of Bright Star, Jane Campion returns to the big screen with an adaptation of Thomas Savage's 1967 novel The Power of the Dog, though it's a far cry from its romantic predecessor. In fact, this engaging 2-hour psychodrama depicts a more brutal state of affairs where temperaments and egos collide to damaging effect. Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons play brothers Phil and George, who are co-owners of a cattle ranch in 1925 Montana. Phil is the more dominant sibling, and his frequent references to the Roman mythology of Romulus and Remus only reinforces the power imbalance. Despite his gruff brother's often relentless bullying delivered with uncomfortable precision by Cumberbatch, the smart-suited George, well, he doesn't grin, but he certainly bears it. That's until one day George courts Rose Gordon, a young widowed mother played by Kirsten Dunst, and takes her as his bride, much to the outrage of his brother. Dunst and Plemons channel all their real-life marital bliss into their on-screen coupling. Of course, the honeymoon is short-lived once Rose moves into the brothers' ranch residence and her son Peter is enrolled at a boarding school to study medicine. Often alone and contending with a housemate who really does not want her invading his space, the psychological warfare between Phil and Rose begins, and Campion directs it with meticulous coolness. Cumberbatch embodies a particularly vile sort of fragile masculinity. He's a disdainful man who gave up urban sensibilities for rural roughness, but takes pleasure in beating down those he perceives as weak. There's a real haughtiness to his character, and a visceral misogyny can be sensed every time he targets Rose for ridicule. Dunst, meanwhile, never fails to earn sympathy as a woman beyond the verge of a nervous breakdown. As a new manipulation takes form and additional plot devices become obviously signposted, however, the action reduces much of the tension established in the first half. The slow pace that once enhanced the uneasy tone becomes a little tedious as we wait for the inevitable events to take place. 20 minutes could certainly have been knocked off the runtime, but it's still a striking world to be swept up in. New Zealand filmmaker Campion used her homeland to replicate the stunning vistas of Montana's cattle country, and the various untouched plains, mountains, and woodlands give the story a looming backdrop. Cinematographer Ari Wegner captured the vast beauty of the landscape by making the most of magic hour lighting to reinforce the mythic quality of this time and these people. Interior scenes inside the ranch house are coldly framed, with lingering angles that only add to the unhealthy fog that hangs in the air, a fog that writhes in Johnny Greenwood's foreboding score. Thematically, The Power of the Dog has a lot to say about the insecurity of manhood, class, and tradition, and through costume designer Christy Cameron's brilliant use of wardrobe, from decadent suits to plimsolls and woolly chaps, each character is set apart in a palpable way. In The Power of the Dog, Jane Campion serves up a nervy psychodrama set against an astonishing cattle country backdrop with impressive performances from Benedict Cumberbatch and Kirsten Dunst. However, an obvious plot trajectory dulls the storytelling impact in the second half.
Sort of a lonesome place out here, Pete, unless you get in the swing of things.